Hi, PJ Scott here with another edition of Veterans Forum. I've been invited to this Pearl Harbor Survivor Luncheon, so let's get to the introductions. Can you tell us your name and what ship were you on?
My name's Ledford A. Coggeshall, and I was on the USS Preble, a destroyer that tied up at the repair docks.
Okay, and you said I could call you Bud, right?
Right.
Thank you, Bud. And next to me here, introduce yourself, please.
I'm Lawrence Todd. I was on the USS Pennsylvania, battleship number 38, and we were in dry dock.
Okay, so you've heard the names and you know that they were there and what ships they were on. Now, before we jump to December 7th, 1941, clearly you had a life before then. Bud, tell us where you were born and raised and what led to you going into the Navy, because clearly you didn't enlist after all this happened like millions of other guys did.
Well, I went in the Navy in 1938. When I got out of high school, I had a chance to go to college, but just didn't have enough money. So, like a lot of guys, I joined the Navy to put together some money to go to college.
What was your goal to go to college?
Electrical engineer.
Okay.
And I went into the Navy and served on battleship, California. In the Atlantic for a while, and then into the Pacific.
Where'd you go to boot camp, and did you get any special training?
Oh, yeah, I went to boot camp in Great Lakes, north of Chicago. And when I was on board the battleship, I went through training in Guantanamo Bay. They give us special training down there, which turned out to be disastrous later on, but I was given all kind of training for landings and this sort of thing, invasion.
Now, let me ask you something. What did your folks think about you joining the Navy? Did you come from a Navy family? And I didn't catch, where did you say you were born and raised?
Okay, I was born and raised in Indiana, and it's up in the northeast corner. It's lake country. A lot of lakes, a lot of good fishing, and no, my folks didn't want me to go in the Navy.
Was your dad a military man at all?
No, my dad, he was strictly a farm boy most of the time, and my mother, she's typical housewife. I had, well, there was 11 of us children.
Oh, wow. She was a very busy woman. I hope she got lots of wonderful presents on Mother's Day because she earned them.
Yeah, the days that I was being raised, it was pretty tough. You had to scratch all the time to make a living.
Did you finally, when you got out, did you get that college degree that you wanted?
Oh, yes. I got an electrical engineering degree, and then I went further to school to become a computer software engineer in 1964. So
wow, you were ahead of your time.
I spent 17 years in computer software engineering.
Well, let's jump in with Larry. We don't want to forget him. Now tell us where you come from. You're born and raised, and why you went in the Navy.
Well, I was born in Baxter Springs, Kansas. I was about 4 years old. We moved to Rawlins, Wyoming.
Now, did you have quite as many brothers and sisters as your friend over here?
No. I had one brother and 2 sisters.
Okay. And where did you graduate from high school?
Rawlins High School, Rawlins, Wyoming.
And why did you join the Navy?
Well, I was down at the theater one day, and I saw this picture showing a destroyer, and it says, "Imagine yourself steering a destroyer."
Oh, the great PR of Hollywood. And how old were you when you saw this picture?
I was 17.
Very impressionable.
Yeah, it was. But I didn't end up on as a destroyer. And then in December of 1940, I joined the Navy, 17 years old.
Now, where did you go to boot camp and what kind of training and so on did you get?
I went to San Diego, California, I finished boot camp, then I went to radio school, and out of radio school I was what we call a radio striker, and that meant when I went on board ship, I was in a radio gang.
Now, what did your parents think about you? I mean, I can just imagine your mother, you see this movie and this is what you're going to do. Do tell.
Well, I think they were kind of happy for me because there really wasn't much to do back where I lived there, you know. I could have become a railroader or a sheep herder, I guess, but that was about it.
Now, at that time, and I know you were pretty young, and I'll get to Bud and ask him the same question, many of us have seen movies, countless movies about World War II. Did you boys here talk about the Japanese possibly attacking the USA?
Well, there was always talk about it, but we never dreamed anything would happen, you know, like what happened at Pearl Harbor. So,
what about you, Bud? Did you hear talk about the?
Oh yes, I always stayed pretty close to world events and was watching what they were doing over in the China and so on. And I had a very good friend that was over on the Pan A. Well, he wasn't on the Pan A, he was on another ship, but he was present when the Pan A got sunk over there on the Yangtze River. So being somewhat associated with someone that was in the area, I got pretty well acquainted with what the Japanese were doing.
Okay, now you said, if I remember correctly, that you went in the Navy in 1938, is that right?
That's right.
So you were not well, I assume you were pretty young, but you were a seasoned sailor by the time Pearl Harbor happened.
Oh yeah, matter of fact, I helped set up the first defenses on Wake and Midway Island. There wasn't anything out there but Goonie birds and a Pan Am hotel and a dock where a Pan Am clipper.
Now, what was your rate and rank?
Well, at what time?
When Pearl Harbor happened?
I was a first-class water gunner.
Oh, okay.
I was in the engineering department. And
now, what ship again were you stationed on, and when did that happen?
well, when I first went in the Navy, I was on the battleship California, but I left it before the war, and I was on a destroyer Preble.
And do you remember the date that you went on the Preble?
I think it was about mid-May 1940.
Okay. Now, Larry, the same thing with you. You went through all your schooling, and by the time Pearl Harbor happened, how soon did you get on your ship? I mean, I assume you didn't report 2 weeks before Pearl Harbor.
No, I went aboard in August, and
what was your rate and rank at the time?
well, at the time I was Seaman Second when I went aboard.
Oh, okay. So you were sort of more a fresh-faced kid, where he was a seasoned sailor here. At what point? Let's bounce to now. Let's pretend it's December 6th. What were you doing?
Well, they had a Battle of the Bands that night, so we all, a lot of us went over to watch the Battle of the Bands, and that was about it.
Okay. So you didn't have watch that night?
No, I did not.
Okay. What were you doing on December 6th, Bud?
I'll never forget it because I was over in Honolulu, and I have a picture of myself walking down the street. And that evening of the 6th, I went out to a friend's place. His car broke down, so we worked on his car out at Naval Base, Naval Housing, I should say. And I left there, I don't know, it must have been 9, 10 o'clock, and I had a magazine I was going to read the next morning. I read.
Well, just as a sidebar, did you ever get to the magazine?
No, I didn't. I got up and went to breakfast, and it started.
Okay, it's December 7th, and tell us because there were many ships in the bay. Where was your ship located? I know a lot of battleships are just side by side, which made it such easy pickings for the Japanese. So kind of describe where your ship was at.
Okay, the repair dock, which we were on, was in full view of Battleship Row, and it was at the dock that has a hammerhead crane, the end of the 1010 dock. And we were tied up there and just forward of the USS New Orleans, and the on the other side of the dock was USS San Francisco. So we had good targets all the way around us.
So when did you know, may I say, all hell broke loose? I think we can say that is pretty appropriate.
Well, we heard the machine gun fire first. We knew it was over on Hickam Field and kind of wondered what was going on. And then all of a sudden the guy was with me. Well, actually there were two with me. The one had been in service in China in the Marine Corps. And he says, those are Japanese planes as they come over. And so we headed for the ship. Wasn't very far.
Okay, now where exactly were you? Were you outside or you were below decks? I mean, are you actually seeing all this? Tell us where you're at when all this is happening.
Yeah, I was right out in the open. I was about 2 docks down from where the ship was. And so I went running for the ship. And we got machine gunned a couple of times trying to get down to the ship. But, they hit a wood pile right alongside of me. And of course, I was ducking behind it. But about that time, one of the Japanese airplanes exploded right in front of me and went into the sound there, or into the harbor.
Well, you know, this might seem like a silly question, Bud, but, you know, I don't know. Were you so overwhelmed you didn't have time to be terrorized, or were you just praying to sweet Jesus? What was your reaction?
I was more or less stunned. I more or less petrified when I began to find out what was going on. But it's kind of a funny thing, you know. You feel so excited and stirred up that you can't remember whether you're scared or what was wrong.
I would imagine there'd be a tremendous amount of conflicting emotions going on there.
Oh yeah, and then when the raid was over, it started turning to hate, and you couldn't trust anybody. Anybody had a gun, you didn't trust them, and then the terror really starts.
Did you get back to your ship, or were you stuck where you were at to stay alive?
No, it was just a few minutes. I was back to ship, and the Japanese kept coming in and torpedoing the battleships. We kept watching them, and the other bombers come in and tried to hit the New Orleans, which was right close to us, and we had to duck. We had a gun going on the USS Cummings, and we blew the tail off one Japanese airplane that crashed in the hospital yard over there.
Now, what were you doing? Now, you say your ship was in repair, so clearly I'm assuming you couldn't have left dock if you wanted to. What were you doing? Were you trying to just do your normal work to keep your ship going or afloat? What were you doing?
Well, the duties were to work in conjunction with the repairman from the harbor, and we'd work on board there, regular repair, one thing and another in the boiler rooms and the engine rooms, but we had no guns, there was no fuel, and well, all of the small arms that we had was locked up in a boxcar, which we broke into and got them out, and then we had no ammunition, and had to go to the USS San Francisco to get ammunition for them.